Colleen, you should have gotten my AIA number in the chat room.
I'm going to switch over that bank account, but I don't do it very often.
Okay, if everyone could turn off their video and their audio, we're ready to go.
Great. Thanks, Colleen. Hi, everybody. It's Cheryl Jacobs and Geo Darter from downtown Miami. Welcome, everyone. I want to just say I represent AIA Miami and the Miami Center for Architecture and Design, and I'm really happy to say that this is our first Zoom collaboration with the Copperbridge Foundation. We've been Zooming since March, as I'm sure most of you have been as well. I just wanted to please, as Colleen asked, please make sure both your sound and your video is muted. We have a lot of participants, and when you're muted, it helps us with bandwidth. And we want to make sure that we have the smoothest program that we possibly can. We have people from all over the world, which is really, really exciting. We had a sign up, and I just wanted to remind you any American architects or architects that are registered in the United States. If you want HSW credits, please remember to type in your name and AIA or registration number in the chat, because if you don't do that, we can't give you your credits. And I know how architects love their credits. So please make sure that you do that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Gio, and can share some info with you guys.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to AIA and Copperbridge. As Cheryl said, our first collaboration, and excited to say the launch of our 10 by 10 series celebrating Copperbridge Foundation's 10-year anniversary. I believe that 10 years ago in September, we set forth our mission to promote cultural and educational exchange through the medium of artistic expression, creating dialogue through the arts. And fast forward 10 years today, we are here to launch our 10 by 10 series with some fantastic programming from our past 10 years, collaboration with other fantastic organizations as well. So to be here with Cheryl and be able to do this together is great. I just want to let you know a little bit about our 10 by 10 series. So I wrote a little something down. It's my first time doing it, so I hope you understand. So here we go. 10 by 10 was created as a way to celebrate our first decade in a meaningful way. 10 by 10 Festival. It's a virtual passport that allows us an opportunity to share our body of work and our mission. 10 by 10 invites the audience to observe and think. It is an opportunity to experience documentary films, dance, art, and online conversations to promote dialogue and exchanges. We had planned a conventional festival, but given the current circumstances, we decided to reinvent the experience with our collaborators and take advantage of the technology that allows us to reach a much wider and global audience. This, we're actually grateful. The selection in this film festival, or this festival, represents the essence of Copperbridge. We have invited professors, architects, dancers, actors, museum directors, and universities from Chile, Cuba, Argentina, Brazil, and the United States to take part in the conferences and talk about their projects. We are premiering 4 documentaries sponsored by the Copperbridge, and the audience will have the direct access to a curated list of videos and photography of theater, dance, concerts, exhibits, interviews, documentaries, community projects since 2010. I'm very grateful and invite you to be part of this 6-month 10 by 10 series. So for more information on our programming and scheduling, we invite you to visit copperbridge.org/10x10 for all the other fantastic programming that we have. I want to take this time also to thank our collaborators and our sponsors. Of course, AIA Miami, AIA National, COD, Committee on Design, Santiago, Diego Baleon, who's fantastic and also helped me much with organization of our COD programming back in 2018. Jeanette Platt from Constructo, also an instrumental part of the organization portion of our 2018 Chile AIA trip that we did. And Amic Art for putting this incredible documentary together. Art Daily for promoting our social media on this. Arc Films as well on Cuba. We're all promoting our 10 by 10 series, and also here promoting the world premiere of Travel into Chile. I also want to thank our incredible architects that will be speaking soon. And, also, and George Miller, of course, from COD, who gave us the opportunity to work together. With this said, I just want to say that we have so many collaborators and organizations that's worked with Copperbridge for the last 10 years. We have done festivals around the world. We have invited dance companies to the US. We've done so many exchange programs. And again, this is a celebration for all. So along the 6 months and the 10 panel discussions we have planned. We invite you to be part of all. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy our documentary film world premiere, Travel into Chile. Thank you again.
Thanks, Gio. So also, since we have so many new people that don't know us, in addition to AIA Miami, we are the Miami Center for Architecture and Design. We have a facility in downtown Miami that, of course, right now is closed, but will be open again before too long, I hope. I'm keeping all my fingers crossed. And we provide educational programming, exhibits, and events that relate to the built environment and the community of Miami. So with that, I am bringing in our fabulous moderator. George Miller, FAIA, is the Chief Operating Officer of Richard Meyer and Partners, and previously served as the Managing Partner of Cobb Freed and Partners. He is an internationally recognized leader and advocate on behalf of the profession, and among his many leadership positions within the profession, Mr. Miller has served as president of the New York chapter of the AIA, as national AIA president, and as chair of the AIA Architectural Foundation. As a longtime member of the AIA's Committee on Design, he served as chair of the committee in 2018 and organized conferences in Chile and Vancouver, one of my favorite cities. I haven't been to Chile yet, but I love Vancouver. Okay, so, and this program obviously is about that trip to Chile. So George, with that, take it away.
Thank you, Cheryl. And Gio, it's really great to see you again. I have to say, it's a pleasure to kind of stay connected. I was asked to say a few things about, how the COD chose to go down to Chile. And as some of my colleagues who are on the call will recall, we in 2016 were trying to figure out where we should go. And we all wanted to go to South America, and we were trying to determine whether we wanted to go to Brazil or whether we wanted to go to Chile or someplace else. And thankfully, we chose Chile. And then we decided that we would ask Gio Darter and Copperbridge to kind of help us put the program together. In 2016, there was a lot of activity here in New York, where I'm located, and there were things at our Center for Architecture, an exhibition called New Practice in Chilean Architecture. And if you remember that in 2016, Alejandro Avena received the Pritzker Prize. So there was a lot of buzz here in our part of the world regarding the architecture of Chile. So we started to kind of put together a program, and we reached out to, in addition to Gio, Jeanette Plout. Jeanette was really very instrumental in helping us identify projects we should see, architects that we should meet. So we had really a wonderful opportunity to kind of get a great cross-section of architecture in Chile. And Chile is a very large country, and it's, I think, something like, 2,600 miles from north to south and 185 miles east to west. There are like 16.3 million persons in that country, and 6 million of them are really in Santiago. So Santiago is really an urban center, kind of like my home here in New York, and everything really revolves around it. So it was difficult to really select the projects that we could see. You may understand that the Committee on Design travels with about close to 90 to 100 persons every year for conferences. There's a domestic conference that occurs in the United States, and then the foreign conference that we've gone to places really all around the world. And next year, if we're able to travel, we'll be going to Singapore, and the national conference will be in Denver. And we went to Havana, I think probably around 2015 or so. I'm not exactly sure of the year we went, but it was really a remarkable conference. And like in Chile, we really had the opportunity to kind of, you know, celebrate art and music, culture, architects. You know, it was just a really wonderful time, and I really had great confidence in Copperbridge and their ability to kind of move us forward. It was a delightful trip. We broke the trip into two pieces, as you'll see in the film that's going to show momentarily. We went to Santiago first. We were there for half the week. And then we went out to Valparaiso. And for those of you who don't know Chile, Valparaiso is really, you know, on the west coast of the country. It's a big port city, and it's where the sailing ships who rounded South America and were moving their way north towards San Francisco and beyond, they all pulled in there to stop. So it's a different kind of community entirely than Santiago. And first of all, it's up in the hills, and there are funiculars in many places. And it has kind of you have the feeling of being in a community which is not quite as driven by commercial interests. Although, you know, all the ships coming there and being in the harbor, there are a lot of sailors that would come, of course, on board or on into town, and you know, it's really a kind of a different place. The city itself is quite colorful and exciting, as you all know, and it really was a terrific part of our journey. There were a number of places that we really that really resonated for me. You know, we had a chance to see the colonial city, and I should say that one of the reasons I think that Chile has so much interesting architecture, and we'll hear more from our panelists about that in a few moments, was because they've had the great tragedies of earthquakes, which have really taken down many of the buildings that have been kind of constructed over time. So we saw really a lot of relatively new things. But for me, we had the opportunity to visit several places of worship, and we went to see the Baha'i project, which was really quite remarkable. And we also saw the Benedictine monastery. And you'll hear more about that, I'm sure, as we go through this discussion. But for me, it was quite exciting because that small cathedral was designed by a priest who, in his previous years, was an architect. So he got the commission to design this project, and decided that he would then go into the ministry. And for me, it was really exciting to hear him speak. I mean, I think he's in his 80s or something like that. He might be even older. It's called the Monasterio Benedictinos is the accurate name of it, and which was designed by Gabriel Guarda and Martin Correa. And I don't know which one of those two individuals was the priest that we had. So that was really quite an exciting adventure that we had. We also saw a number of museums, one that was done by Reddick, which we'll see in a few minutes. And we went to the top of the tallest tower in Colombia, or in Santiago, which was designed in part by Cesar Pelli's office. So that was really enjoyable for me. And we had great meals, and that's really something that's part of the culture in Chile, and everybody really seemed to enjoy that. But one of the highlights of the trip for me was also going to the Vic Vineyard. And I have to say that I'm still ordering wine from Chile and enjoying it. And I think I have some right here in the office that maybe I should break out. But a lot of enjoyment going to location. So anyway, I think I should really allow Gio and the group to show the film. A lot of the COD members are in it, and we're really happy that Gio has spent the time and energy, you know, to put this incredible film together. I know he's had a lot of help in putting it together, and it's taken quite some time. But Gio, if you're there, why don't we go ahead and roll the tape, as they say.
Thanks, George and Colleen. Let's roll the film.
When I began to think about where we might go for our international conference, I thought about South America.
Y la arquitectura es un hecho de transformación social.
Hace visible de otra forma la naturaleza.
La arquitectura chilena está en una posición bastante interesante dentro del contexto latinoamericano.
Como tener a la familia americana acá en casa. Bueno, obviamente es un honor tener a los arquitectos de la IA aquí en Chile y tenerlos en este museo, siendo este el lugar donde se les recibe y se les da la bienvenida. Y ciertamente es un proyecto que quiero mucho porque desde muy pequeño estuve interesado en la arquitectura y en el arte, de manera que cuando recibí el encargo de este museo fue un evento que recordaré siempre con mucho cariño y gratitud.
Considero importante que vengan otros arquitectos a vivir la arquitectura chilena, a vivir el paisaje chileno, a vivir cómo somos los chilenos. Estas visitas generan un networking sumamente necesario para todas las disciplinas, tanto para la arquitectura propiamente tal, como para el cine en este caso, ya que estamos pronto a inaugurar el Arc Film Fest.
La relación del cine-arquitectura, bueno, es algo que ha sido inherente desde la formación de la imagen en movimiento. Podemos ver a través de una cámara cómo se comporta esa obra, ¿cierto? Cómo es la vivencialidad de esa obra. Y justamente el festival ayuda a promover esta disciplina del cine a los arquitectos o profesiones afines a la arquitectura para participar de ella.
Aquí en el evento de AIA, es un hotel que diseñé yo y que se construyó. Es así como llego a esta terraza y además llego, según yo, a un cóctel, pero finalmente termino explicando de qué se trata el hotel. O sea, yo creo que la arquitectura chilena está teniendo una voz muy fuerte y por eso está toda esta visita de la AIA acá en Chile, ¿no? Tenemos una cosa muy particular con el paisaje, el territorio y una manera de entender la arquitectura y una condición poética de nosotros habitando este territorio, que es un territorio de fricción que está siempre explotándose o terremoteándose o explotando los volcanes. Entonces vivimos en un sentido como de precariedad que nos da una sensibilidad profunda con el lugar y el medio ambiente y que nos permite hacer formas nuevas.
arquitectura para mí es un arte. La capacidad que tiene una obra de arte, una obra de arquitectura, de transformar la percepción del espacio. Nosotros estamos aquí a los pies de la cordillera de los Andes. El asunto fue la invención de una forma de habitar la pendiente del terreno. Pensamos que esa indicación debe ser incorporada a la arquitectura en un diálogo con la naturaleza.
Es una viña de la familia de Alexander y Kerry. Es una combinación de arte con producción de los mejores vinos tintos de Chile. La bodega se construyó en el año 2014 con un famoso arquitecto chileno que se llama Chilean Architects, y la bodega, el hotel se construyó más o menos en la misma época, pero con otro arquitecto de origen uruguayo, Marcelo Dávilo.
Muy importante es la sustentabilidad y ser lo más verdes posible. El espejo de agua reduce la cantidad de energía que tenemos que usar para enfriar la sala de barricas. En el campo no hacemos aplicaciones que no sean orgánicas, y ese cuidado es algo que en este arte es muy demandado por la gente.
Creo que hoy la arquitectura chilena está en un muy buen nivel. Tenemos una generación o varias ya generaciones de arquitectos de muy buen nivel de diseño, y hoy día ya eso ha permeado mucho más a una arquitectura urbana, y estamos teniendo edificios que tienen un impacto urbano mucho mayor y que creo que también son un aporte a la arquitectura. Intentamos que nuestros proyectos abran espacios públicos gratuitos. Vieron el edificio Transoceánica recién, que igual está en un barrio privado, pero que no tiene rejas y que está completamente abierto. Este mismo edificio tiene todo este espacio que no tiene poca dimensión, permite que la gente que vive en el barrio se integre a él.
He tenido mucha relación con la arquitectura, el espacio y los arquitectos, y es interesante que en definitiva mi trabajo fotográfico es un trabajo como con las estructuras humanas muy primitivas para habitar, ¿no? Para refugiarse. Llevo muchos años recorriendo el mar y buscando el retrato o el significado que tenía el océano para las culturas antiguas.
Well, our relation with the Copperbridge Foundation and with the AIA has been a very good exchange, because more architecture that is coming from here to the world is teaching architects around the world on how we do things here. And architecture is very related to what architects say here, the more with less. Here we don't have much resources, we have to be very inventive. And this unique condition of Chile that keeps getting strong and strong is now finally getting its vision into the world, and hopefully benefiting many architects who are in a similar context, especially in the growing, developing world.
Well, I've been a member of the Committee on Design for 30 years, and we've never come to South America. So it's been very interesting to see a little bit of the free form, not being hindered by so many regulations.
To draw, and I don't work on the computer, but I always find that drawing is a way of capturing the things you want to capture in a space, and so I limit my photography and try to do this as a little way of cliff notes of my journey through. And so this is called a Moleskin Japanese album, which allows you to open this up completely. And so rather than having just one page on open, you can hang this out and you can walk all the way around and see. It's like a little movie.
Wonderful meals here, and over every meal we're talking about the issue of the architecture here. And I would have to say the problems that I've seen so far here are kind of similar to what we experience in the United States. If you ask me, you know, what are the buildings that we've seen which we really, you know, like? And we saw the Benedictine monastery, which I think many people have said is really one of their favorites here, because the monk is an architect, and he started with the sight and the idea of light and you know, silence and comfort in the sanctuary, and I think many people really love that. So we've organized really a very, very beautiful trip to look at not only at Santiago and its architecture, but also to go to Valparaiso and to see that city.
interaction is always positive. I think everyone comes away richer for having collaborated and shared ideas. We learn a lot from how other people in the world utilize the resources they have and how they make architecture.
Interacción en general de las disciplinas de unas regiones con otras, sobre todo en Latinoamérica, es vital, ¿no? Entender también uno de dónde venimos y quiénes somos, es un gran conjunto y hay que entender el oficio desde la capacidad de interacción entre una región y otra. La opción de trabajar colaborativamente puede entregar grandes sorpresas, ¿no? Ahí hay un campo que se puede abrir y que la relación aún no existe tan fuerte, pero hay que comenzarla.
I have to say that this city is full of life.
Trying to look deeply at how we occupy the planet and how we live.
Nosotros estamos pensando cómo dar forma al planeta, ¿no?
I think a very positive and important learning experience here in Chile.
So, hi everybody, welcome back. Hey George. This is Cheryl again. I just wanted to introduce and bring up our panelists, and then I'll turn it back over to you, George. Alex, are you there? You want to unmute yourself? Alex Brahm plus Arquitectos is a lead accredited professional and has been a professor at the UC School of Architecture. He's a founding partner at Plus Arquitectos, and his work focuses on corporate architecture, real estate architecture, and industrial architecture. Let me remind you, if you're not on the panel, to please mute yourself, or we will mute you. Then also, let me bring on Marine Elton, and Mauricio Lenis. They're all together. Hi, guys.
Hello.
So since 1993, the Elton Lenis office has carried out a wide spectrum of projects independently, along with a varied list of associated collaborators, which include architects, artists, and designers. This diversity and versatility in the designing capacity on different levels and topics has been developed as one of the main features of the office. And once when they come on, and George will talk to them, they'll tell you a little bit more about them individually and about their firms. So with that, George, take it away.
Thanks. Well, I don't want to go any further without congratulating Geo and Copperbridge and Mr. Rios and others who really were so instrumental in making that film. I mean, it was really a joy to kind of relive with you all, and I know we have a lot of COD members on this call, the wonderful times that we enjoyed. I don't know how we managed to do so much in 1 week, but we did. And it was really terrific. I mean, we, as people who spoke have said, you know, we learned a lot about how architects can really be successful, and in some cases do a lot with a little. And I think that's really the case. So it was just an enjoyable trip, an enjoyable film. Congratulations again. It's a good way to kick off 10 by 10. It was really 1 + 9, I think is really what it is. That's my view. Anyway, we'll wait to see what else you have in store for us. I saw you had a slide before that had some of the kind of presentations that you're going to have over the next 9 weeks or 6 months, I guess you said, but there are 9 other programs. You should put that back up before we all depart, because I think folks will be interested in seeing some of it. So anyway, again, it's all art and music. So you can do that now if you can reach it. If not, we'll go on.
I think we'll go on and just let everybody know that they can get all of the information about all of the programs that are coming up in 10 by 10 on the Copperbridge website, copperbridge.org.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah. So with these incredible panelists, we thought we'd really send out a few questions. Oh, there's Susan Chin. Look at that. Hi, Susan. We see you. We see you. Anyway, and I saw that Ronette was here somewhere. That was a stellar role you had, Ronette. And I don't know whether Tom Rossiter has joined, but I mean, it was nice to see a lot of familiar faces down there. So at this moment, I'd like to launch into a few questions for the panel. And there was just something put up in the chat. There's going to be an opportunity for Q&A after this. So hold your questions towards the end of the program. So what I'd like to begin with is kind of a question about how the panel can really explain the global attention given to Chilean architects today. I mean, what makes it so special down there? I mean, I've got my own views, but I'd really like to hear from you. And I think, for one, that Art Daily has really had a significant role in bringing the successes of Chilean architects to the world. And so you know, kudos to them for doing what they're doing. And it's kind of launched in like a global platform for architects of all age groups and all interests to really embrace architecture. So why don't I start with that question again? Explain the global attention that's given to the Chilean architects today.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for the beautiful video first. And it's true, Arts Daily made a very big impact in the world, showing Chilean architecture. They began being very young, 2 partners, and today they have, I think, 5 offices around the world: China, Brazil, United States, and so on. And the beautiful thing about Arts Daily that they recognized that there was very good architecture in Chile. So they took advantage of that fact. And because of that, they had that success, I would say.
Yeah.
And in Chile, I think there is a very beautiful way to see in architecture. From generation to generations, most of us think architecture as an art. And I think that makes a difference.
Terrific. Well, you know, one of the things that we've talked about previously, is that in Chile, architects seem to work in teams quite often. Whereas, you know, we're always working in teams, but I think you do it across firms, which is which is a wonderful kind of way to really achieve beauty and success. And I should say that for those COD members that were with us, Maureen and Maurizio were the architects of the Patricia Reddy Gallery. That was the place where we met the first evening, if you remember. And it was really a wonderful, wonderful event there with music and food. And it was a very comfortable place to start our trip to Chile. So thank you for that. And as you know, Alex Brahm was the architect of the Transoceana building that we saw. If you remember, we had a nice lunch there, and we really had pretty much free reign of the entire building. And I think Alex was very instrumental in arranging that. And one of the things that I saw, I mean, it's a commercial building, but it really is a project that has a certain openness to the environment. You know, you're able to, as you said in the film, to kind of pass through it, and you know, it's a place for the public. And it also, I think, is a place that really embraces sustainable kind of design ideas. So perhaps, Alex, you could talk a little bit about, you know, sustainability in Chile and how important it is to you as an architect.
We were very lucky in this project because the owner of the project were very concerned about the sustainability. So it is not so usual to get some so good clients that ask you to do the best that you can do in sustainability in one project. And I think that was the main thing that allows us to make a very, very good project in this way. The owner is a German family, and they put us in contact with a German engineering company that has a lot of experience in all sustainability. So we get all this new information, and we grow a lot as a architectural firm, knowing more details and more issues about the way to project with to think about projects in the right way. But I think the main thing that we learn about that is that most of the good numbers that you can achieve with architecture is related to exactly to the architecture, not so much about the systems that you put in there. That has to be also very efficient. But if you don't concern about how you design the architecture, how you manage the sun coming into the buildings, and avoiding the so much heat and all that things that are all architectural issues, and that's the main thing of achieve good sustainability buildings. I think that's the main thing.
It seems that you've like taken the notion of design with nature. That was really something that we studied in school like 50 years ago, and taking it really to a new level. And it seemed to me that when we had the presentations by some of the young architects who are working on smaller projects really all across the country, the issue of designing their buildings so they really fit in the landscape where they're built was really quite special for me. And I would say, you know, some of our colleagues went down to Patagonia and looked at a lot of buildings there. And it really is a different solution architecturally when you're building a house or so in Patagonia than you are in the center of Santiago. So it's really uplifting to see what young people are doing in Chile. And so I'm kind of interested in knowing, you know, how are younger architects being successful? I know we have probably a lot of students and aspiring architects on the Zoom today. What advice can you give to some of the students who are just joining the field and how to be successful? And is there an increase or a decrease in the number of students that are entering the design field, the architectural field? What's the current situation in Chile? And as a follow-up, could you talk a little bit about you know, how one becomes an architect in Chile? That's a lot.
Well, hello, George.
Like,
thank you again for the invitation. And well, since the 90s, there's been an increase on architectural students because there is more than 30, I believe, architecture schools in Chile. So that's quite a lot. And maybe it's one of the reasons I can, say that there are more people thinking in architecture now and progressively. And then again, this can be also, if we can say some of architecture schools can think about specifically how to teach architecture in Chile. And there you can have an example on Talca University, which is a kind of rural university that is thinking on the way of teaching in that specific identity and place on the rural aspect of architecture. Mm-hmm. And maybe the advice that if we can give any to new architects or developing architects is we have this, as you said, very specific landscape and long country that has like several different regions. And to take that into account, at least we with Mirene, it's something we always start with, the place, the territory and the geography, and how architecture in a way can be a way of colonizing this landscape also. And there can be always some kind of innovation on how architecture is a media with the landscape and the inhabitants of it.
And I think in your office that you also focus on the craft of building, don't you? And really kind of the design of all elements that go into buildings. Can you address that a bit? Just how that's more prevalent there?
Well, we try a lot to understand local handcraft when we design buildings in different scales. So we think that the cross of some industrialization of architecture, if you can say that, and also the cross in between handcraft traditions, there's a kind of, there's something in between that we try to use a lot in the works we do. We are privileged to have to design lots of houses, and that provides us with a lot of tasks into the way these particular buildings are built. So we try to learn about specific handcrafts, and we like that.
Mm-hmm. Terrific. Well, Alex, your projects are perhaps a little larger in scale, and so I'm wondering really, and I'm sure the audience wonders as well, just what you think the most significant challenges are of designing and building in Chile. Do you have any difficulties, for example, in the availability of material, or it seems like things that we saw were all pretty highly crafted and put together. Is that because you have connections, as you mentioned before, with Europe, or is it just that industry in Chile is really doing exceptional work of building components of projects?
No, I think it's difficult to us to have components for the architect. Our industry is very bad, I think, and we have very less products that we can get here. So I think that has two phases. In one phase, it's a difficult don't have so many possibilities to get products and materials to the architecture. But on the other hand, this that we have very less from them obliges us to work with not so many things and to achieve and make very good architecture with very less materials and with not so high-end technology. So we have to be more creative to deliver good projects with less materials. We mostly work here with hormigón armado, concrete and steel beton. That works very good, and that's the best material for earthquakes and for big buildings, in my opinion. So we don't have so many materials, but we have to deal with it, and that allows us to make, I think, good architecture with simple things, more related to the space than for the materials or the high-end technology.
Mm-hmm. Well, we certainly saw a lot of exceptional architectural concrete while we were in Chile and a trip there. So concrete really is special.
I think we have developed much more the wood now. We have a lot of, we have that we have to put more technology to have better wood to build buildings. And now most of the wood that we produce is made chips and sell to China. And we need to improve our industry in that way to put more wood into the buildings. I think it's a very interesting material and it has to be much more used in our buildings.
I might say that
and also in details.
I also see that in the United States there seems to be an increased use of mass timber. I mean, not in large cities like ours, but it's something that's really catching on.
That's starting here.
All right.
Mauricio and Irene had an amazing project in the south with mass timber wood, and you couldn't be there, but it's a very, very good, very, very nice project.
Thank
I
you,
love
Alex.
it.
Thank you, Alex.
No, really, really.
Was it a home or was it a building for gathering?
Yeah. Yeah, we designed an estancia, as Mirene was saying, in the Patagonia. We were lucky to have that project to design with.
So tell us a little bit about how you really get these commissions, and it's word of mouth, it's friends, or is it competitions, or tell us about the next jobs you're going to get and how you're going to get them.
all of them, I would say.
All of
friends,
them, exactly.
Yeah.
family at the beginning of our career, and for many years, the government have doing contests for public buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a big opportunity to have to design public buildings through concourse.
Mm-hmm.
I think also that when we started our social kind of network worked, and if you are lucky, then you would have, though maybe very small projects, but you are so passionate with them that that's the way to begin.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can say nowadays we are competing in between with Alex also.
Mm-hmm.
For a very significant contest for a cultural space now in Santiago.
Oh.
So it's a mixture of things.
In this project, I'm competing with my wife also. She's also architect. She works in another office, and we are competing now. It's the third time that happens to us.
Well, it's a small society here, so that's very, very common that happens. We compete a lot. And
just by curiosity, the competitions that you do for governmental agencies, are they paid, compensated a little bit, or not at all?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
But I work most with the private contests.
That's another
that
way.
they invite us 5, 10 offices and make a private contest. And I think mostly of our work come from this kind of contest.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, it's something like mouth to mouth. So you are invited to the contest, and then you have to deliver a good project and works. But I think 80% of our work comes from this private contests.
I'd like to switch the conversation a little bit and to ask you about, because you're there in Santiago most of the time, a couple of questions. I mean, one is, how supportive is call it the city government or the regional government in addressing issues of urbanism and planning? And that is, the parks, the idea of parks and streets, that really are comfortable for pedestrians. How involved?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I wanted to mention before that this beautiful architecture that you show at the video, it begins at the 90s. After the dictatorship, it was a flourishing of new architecture. Chile was open to the world, open to the new architecture, and was a very talented group of young architects. So it was a match between history and good architects that were beginning to do new things. And because our neoliberal model, there were a lot of opportunity and money to do private buildings, private houses, all of them that you saw when you came to Chile. And about to answer your question, I think we have a big doubt that with the public space. And
I'm sorry, I don't understand. A big
debt?
Deuda? Well,
saying that the
contrast between is, I think there is, what I wanted to say, that is a lot of good architecture in the private sector, but there is not in the public, as you asked. We have to do more about pedestrian, cycling, streets, parks, and I think we have to do that, and especially today.
I would say, can I complement Mirene's answer, that as Mirene was saying, yeah, there's a lot of talented architects doing specific designs, building designs or houses, whatever. But the thing is, urban planification, and what we're saying is that that's kind of the next step, to maybe have a kind of voice from architecture into public policies for the future. And we were talking the other day about, it's Chile is very centralized. So Santiago, gets most of the attention, but we have a very, very long territory to think about, and very small cities that are going to develop, and very fragile because of urban planification, or because of lack of urban planification. So that would be our real task for the future, I think.
I'm just to follow that thought a bit further. Can you describe what's happening in terms of public transportation in Chile? I mean, the trains in the center of the city, the ways to communicate. I mean, I have to tell you that our buses were caught in lots of traffic when we were there, but we are here in the cities of the United States as well. So is there planning for transportation that makes sense to you?
I think that we are trying to increase the metro, the subway lines, and make every time more. I think that works very good. We began to build them on the 17th, and at the beginning we have only one line, and now we have 6, and we are planning to make a lot of more. But I think we have to invest much more in public transportation, and so in private cars, and more in buses, subways, cycling, and pedestrian ways, and all that stuff. I also would say that we have to look at the not so rich areas of Santiago. You were here and you were going around 20% of the city. The other 80% is much poorer than you saw, and has much more problems in public space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Much more problems. Most of the invest that the government makes it again in the richest part of Santiago, and I think that's very important to change. So the investments that we make in urban infrastructure can reach the poorest zone of the city. I think that's very important to change.
And it's Alejandro Aravena that is
yes.
very important. He said something about the social problems that we are having in Chile. Have you seen the news? And he said, as Alex was explaining, if we don't if we don't solve the public transportation, the disgregation between the periferia and the center, social protests will continue.
Mm.
So we are very responsible as architects to change our cities
Mm-hmm.
in that way.
I'm also curious really about the program for housing for those who are in need. I'm sure that's a big challenge in your city. We call affordable housing, and is there a plan for building in the city of Santiago, for example, housing that can really address the homelessness issues that you have?
Well, there's going to be a big investment from the government, also imposed because of the pandemic, for the next year, that is focused on social housing, and I think that public policy is beginning to understand the issues that we're talking about here of segregation, localization of this social housing, because what has been done up to this days has not been working, because there is a big periferia that is been expanding all the time, and that has bring us more problems than solutions. So the thing is to think about that as a big issue on what is the urban future that we see for Santiago, which is a big city and still expanding.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that until now we are beginning to think about the quality of the social housing. Until now we were as country aware of the number. We needed to build a lot of houses that we didn't have. So all the politics were focused on build very fast, many houses. Mm-hmm. And we achieve it. Now we have a lot of very bad houses. So we have to change everything again and make a lot of good houses. That's a big issue we have to face from now on.
Yeah. So maybe we should just ask you to kind of, if you'd like to say something else that I haven't asked you about, you take this time to do it. But Cheryl, I don't know if we received questions or not.
We put a note in the chat if people have questions to put them in. I don't have questions, have a lot of comments, but so far, no questions.
No questions.
I'll run through it to make sure.
Not COVID in Chile?
I think it might be interesting to hear some of the comments that are made as well.
Yeah.
Here's a question. Alex, the Germans who were your clients asked to do geothermal, but you have done more.
Yeah, they didn't ask us to make geothermal. We did, but I think it's as I said before, the big issue in design friendly buildings with the environmental begins with the architecture. You have to think about how the sun comes in, what's the temperature in the summer, how the sun moves into the building, how the lights come in. So more or less not so new issues. That's not so fancy to say, but I think that the modern architecture many years ago were beginning to focus on these issues, and I think that's all. Now it's the same thing. We have to focus on the quality of the architectural design, and with good designs, we can put in geothermal, solar power, or whatever, wind power, or whatever we think about. But the first thing is to make a healthy architecture, I would say.
So, thanks, Alex. We have a couple of questions now. How has the pandemic affected construction?
Construction.
Yep.
Yeah.
How has it affected construction in Chile?
Well,
or maybe the question should be, has it affected construction?
Yeah, absolutely.
At this time, many of the workplaces are closed. So that's the first thing that we are affected. We are aware since March with many of the, in Santiago, many of the construction sites stop. We cannot work. So that's the first thing we are affected. But I think when all things get more normal, we have to see what's the really impact of the pandemic. Architecture is a very long-term job, and buildings are there for 50, 100 years, so you cannot design for 1 year. I think at this moment, it's more important the opinion of urban management. You can manage the public spaces differently than before, so you can avoid many people crossing to be together in the same places, and things like were done in New York. My son lives there, and he told me that in many streets you get out the cars at the park places and allow the restaurants to put their tables in the streets, so they avoid to be eating together in indoor situation. I think that's the first thing that we have to look at in the pandemic, and after a little more time, we have to see if that has a really impact, a long-term impact in our designs. But in the big picture, I think that this pandemic can help us to be more concerned of design more healthy architecture, with more air, with more space for the people, and thinking more into the people than in the nice of the buildings. That's very important too, but you have to think more in how the people use them.
Yes, healthy buildings is a big discussion here in the United States as well. Here's another question away from the pandemic issues. What do you think? Oh, remember, people, to mute yourselves. What do you think are going to be the main challenges for new generations of Chilean architects? That's a big question.
Yeah, it is. Well, I would say, for the first thing, a very common thing and saying from architects, I think you have to be very passionate with this profession. If you are not passionate and you cannot put all your and your thinking into one project, it's very difficult to to develop very good architecture. So you have to love it from all your body.
Yeah, that's
Passion.
That's for
Passion,
sure.
yeah.
But I think also I see in younger architects and people that study architecture, and architecture involves many visions and different jobs, and I think the diversity of opportunities of one being an architect are all, of course, in design, that it's what we love to do, but also in other fields that relate with architecture. So in a way, I think, as I was saying before, that there are many students of architecture in Chile, but that in a way, I think it's positive. It's more people thinking on architecture, and in that sense, thinking on the people that live in it. So I think there's lots of opportunities of being innovative and creative in the way an architect can, be an asset for society.
So thank you. So we're going to go back to the geothermal. Have you done other smaller geothermal projects?
No, we haven't. No, sí, has hecho más chico. Geothermal.
No, I haven't. But the geothermal, it's very. I know a lot of projects that little projects, houses that works with geothermal, and it works very good, especially in the south of Chile.
That's great.
Oh, we are designing a house with geothermal and a spa with geothermal also. So small buildings with the same system. Yes.
So here's another question. How active is preservation or adaptive reuse, repurposing of older architecture in Chile?
Well, it's not that
preservation.
It's not that active because of a very simple reason. We do have some old buildings, but our architectural memory has been affected because we have earthquakes. We're a young country, and I don't believe we have older buildings than from 250 years ago or so. It's very difficult. They have not survived earthquakes. So in a way, we have specific kind of projects that have worked on rehabilitation of older buildings, but there are really few. So we're much more used to building new buildings. And in a way, that's okay. That's our reality. And in another sense, we are kind of lacking of valuing the history and the memory of buildings.
So after the earthquake, have building codes, the building codes change every time and strengthen?
Yeah, a lot. And that's why George was saying you visited a lot of concrete buildings. Yeah, we used concrete a lot. And we are starting to realize that also lighten structures as wood, as Alex was mentioning, have a lot of values also in confronting the energy of earthquakes. So I think we're looking forward on designing more buildings in wood. Alex, you are involved in this design with Foster here, huh?
Yeah, Foster and Partners is doing a housing project in the south of Santiago, and we are elected as local architects from them. So that's why we are working together. It's a wood glulam project, 8 pisos.
Sí. Heights.
8 heights. It's a very big project, and I'm very happy to work in that. It's a very nice project.
That's great. So George, is there anything you want to, any questions, more questions that you want to ask?
Well, thanks. I think it's been a great discussion, and I just want to kind of add something to the discussion about reuse, adaptive reuse of projects. You might remember, this is again to the team who was on the tour and for our panelists, Joaquin Velasco in Valparaiso did this project Dinamarca, where he has, studio spaces and terraces looking out over the city, and that was I think, from what we saw, probably the best example of kind of an intervention in an old building in a new way. And then we saw another building at the end of our tour, if you remember, where we had dinner, which also was I don't know that I'll be able to pull it up here, that also really was a adaptive reuse. I think it was the cultural building in Valparaiso done by HLPS Architects.
No, pero está hablando en Valparaíso.
Yeah, anyway, I think it's there, but as you say, that it's not really as prominent because of the destruction of so many of your projects. So, Cheryl, I really don't have anything. It's been a good conversation. I'm sure I'm seeing questions still being.
Yeah, I was going to, one question is, in 2019, Chile was Chile was becoming a leader in climate change with some ambitious national agendas, such as closing coal power plants, increasing green energy percentage. Is this commitment still present as it relates to architecture?
Well, as a public policy, it's supposed to be, but we're still kind of way behind that issues. I think we should really be working more in that, and the government like really being an impulse into that line of designing and doing.
Do you have, for example, a group in government that really looks out over architecture and urbanism, or it's not kind of interest to the political leaders?
No, I think not a lot, but we have a Ministry of Housing and Urban Planning, so
And energy also.
also another Ministry of Energy, so that they might work together sometimes. So there is interest, but I think we are very we have not a lot of help from the government to develop more sustainability buildings. But I think that
it's changing.
That is changing, and also we as architects and other professionals, we know what's happening with the earth, so we have to make it
make it happen.
Make it happen.
It's our concern.
It's possible. You have to make it happen.
You have
with or without help of the government.
Exactly.
You have to make it happen. That's, I think, in a way, Cheryl, that's a good comment to close on.
Absolutely.
Work hard to make it happen.
Absolutely.
So, Cheryl, if there, I mean, I'm getting thirsty, so it's.
So this would be a great time for us to thank you, George, to thank our panelists, thank everyone for, I don't know what that is. There's a message that came on. We'll ignore that. And to turn on my video so you can see my smiling face with Gio.
I neglected to do one thing that I should have done all along, which is to thank Diego Baloy for his help. I mean, he was our guide, walking us around, and we really enjoyed being with him and again, I want to thank all the COD members, and I want to thank Copperbridge again and AIA Miami. I mean, it's a good time, and Kurt Fentress, who's on my screen, is really thinking about Singapore, and we're going to have lots of interesting discussions over there, I'm sure. And Ronette hasn't missed a trip in 30 years, so she's going to be with us and live. So it's a great group of people, and we all enjoy being together. So, you know, we got to get through this COVID thing, and we'll be on. So Cheryl, thanks for your leadership in putting this together, and Gio, thanks for all your work. The film is beautiful, and we can applaud you. I think everybody can hear it.
It is a beautiful film, and I just wanted to ask everybody to, you know, keep up with what's happening at Copperbridge and at AI Miami and the Miami Center for Architecture and Design on our websites. Please follow us on social media, and we hope to see you at our next program, our next joint program next month. So thank you again, everyone. It was wonderful seeing everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Ciao.
Okay, thank you. Bye, thank you.
Gracias.
Bye. Gracias a ustedes.
Are you going to answer any of the question in the chat?
Oh, sorry, we're out of time. We'll try and answer those questions online. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you to everyone.